Okay, now this formula is going to be a bit of a bear, but just copy it as you see it. What we need to do is get the standard deviation, but since there's two different ones, we're trying to pull it together in one. Um, so I'm going to just go ahead and start typing this. I'm going to take the square root of, I'm going to put 3 parentheses there because we're going to nest it in a little bit here. So we're going to take number in the first sample minus 1, then multiply that by our first variance, and then we're going to add to that number in the second sample minus 1 times that second variance, and then we're going to divide that whole thing by first sample size plus second sample size minus 2. Whew, that was crazy. Yeah, and double check that just to make sure you get the numbers right. Once we get the standard deviation, this is basically our measuring stick of how big the changes are. Then we just look at, okay, how big was the difference in means? So what is this? This is how far apart were the averages of the two groups, the average of the prosperous countries, the average of the less prosperous. But we want to have some kind of standardized scale so we can compare this with like music preferences or psychology measures or educational measures. So we want to somehow put it on a same scale. So we create what's called a Cohens D. And all we have to do is take that difference and divide by this standard deviation. And this will tell us how many standard deviations apart were the two groups. Now, a Cohen's D, this is, let me put this in parentheses just so you know which type of effect size. There's lots of effect sizes. A Cohen's D typically of 0.2 is considered small, 0.5 is considered medium, 0.8 is considered large. It really depends on the context, but that's kind of a rule of thumb. Anything above 1 is often considered very extreme. So here we have an effect size. For my data, it was about 4. 4 standard deviations difference in between the prosperous countries and the less prosperous countries. That's a huge difference. So not only is this statistically significant, as we found out before, but it's pretty clearly practically significant. In other words, this difference between the prosperous and non-prosperous countries in terms of ecological footprint, it really matters. It's a substantial difference. It's not just that we're pretty sure there is a difference. The difference itself is really big. So I know that's a mouthful. Let me summarize. Since you'll need to insert a comment, you'll go here and insert a comment. This is what I would say. The prosperous countries have an ecological footprint that is about 4 standard deviations higher or heavier or worse than the less prosperous countries based on our data.